So, another day, another controversy when it comes to the FIA and their rules. Some new rules have been voted through despite widespread criticism of them. Let's just go into what these rules are, give my opinion on whether this is a good thing or a bad thing, and why people are not too happy, or at least some quarters are not too happy about this being voted through. Shout out to Andrew Benson of the BBC for covering this. Controversial changes to the statutes of Formula One's governing body approved on Friday constitutes a worrisome concentration of power, according to the head of some of its member clubs. Changes to the statutes concerning the ethics and audit committees each passed with about 75% approval at the FIA General Assembly in Rwanda on Friday. Opponents say the changes will reduce accountability at the FIA, which currently they're not really being accountable of much, but to reduce it further is not good. Before the vote, Thierry Willenmark, the head of the Royal Touring Club of Belgium, expressed to FIA members his concerns about the process through which the changes had been made. He told BBC Sport, "It is a concentration of power that we have to be worrisome about." He said the correct interpretation of the changes was that they essentially put the president of the FIA and the president of the FIA Senate, who are allies and on the same leadership team, in control of the ethics and audit committees. So for those that don't really realize what that means, it basically means that the boss of the FIA effectively answers only to a committee that is loyal to him. It's not handled by anybody else. So if something was to be a bit questionable, the people who would be questioning about it, who could do something about it, won't, because they are effectively allies. They are one in the same almost. So, and that's something that Mohammed bin Sulayem, the president of the FIA, that has been, allegedly doing, ousting anybody, firing anybody that voices any kind of slight kind of disagreement with him, and replacing him with somebody who is effectively a stooge, so a puppet, somebody that he knows is loyal to him. And that would explain why there's been so many people that have been axed from the higher echelons of the FIA over the last few months. In particular, it's been really, really prevalent. They have been proposed at the end of a year which the ethics and audit committees have investigated a number of allegations about the conduct of Ben Sulayem. Motorsport UK chairman David Richards also expressed his opposition before the vote at the FIA General Assembly in Rwanda. Richards told the BBC Sport, "I've got reservations about a number of issues within the changes, but it's the process that I'm challenging and want to see more transparency on in the future. This is not an issue about where the changes might or might not be to the rules on the Senate or the Ethics Committee. This is a fundamental debate about how governance should work within the FIA and the opportunity of proper, open debate on these matters." Willenmark added, "I don't say anyone plans to abuse this, but with good governance, normally you would have an audit committee that in our case would report to the Senate, and the denomination of the audit committee should be approved by the General Assembly. And you should prove the possibility for General Assembly members to make reference to the audit committee if they have doubt on some practices, so that there can be an inquiry running independently of anybody who is leading the federation." So it's basically a bit like a political party. You don't want the Prime Minister to only answer to his cabinet. It should be to the whole Parliament, other parties and stuff like that. There should be accountability there. There should be consequences for if things don't work out for whatever reason. But this effectively makes it so that the president almost answers to himself, like I said before. It is just a matter of good practice and governance that you see in most organisations around the world. Both Richards and Willenmark said the FIA Statute Review Commission had been bypassed in the process of drawing up and approving these changes, which had been put to an e-vote of World Council members with no discussion before the General Assembly. No discussions. That's just the greatest sign of democracy right there. Willenmark emphasised that this was not mandatory for changes to pass through the Commission, so nothing illegal has happened in the process, but he added he would like to seek a benchmark to the new FIA statutes on ethics and audits with those other bodies. He would communicate the main differences we observe and then see what happens. Heads of the Belgian, British and Austrian members of the FIA have all now publicly expressed their opposition to the process of introducing the new changes, and there is said to be a groundswell of opposition among European member clubs. The vote passed with 24.51% opposition on the ethics changes and 23.83% on the audit committee. What does the FIA say about this? Well, the FIA has for the first time sought to explain the reasoning behind these changes in the wake of their adoption. A spokesperson said there were three main reasons for the change to the ethics committee. The first was to preserve and enhance its independence by reducing the involvement of the FIA admin and its operation, and that the committee now has the powers to independently assess whether or not to launch the investigation. Critics point out that the new statutes mean it cannot do so without the approval of the FIA President. The spokesperson added that as a result of continuous leaks to the media of confidential material, it was proposed that the distribution of any ethics committee report would be limited. Again, I mean, yeah, it's not great that things are getting leaked, of course, but at the end of the day, if you've got nothing to hide, nothing to fear from, nothing you've done wrong, why are you wanting to hide it? Why are you wanting to limit that? Again, not making that information publicly available, unless there's certain things that have to be redacted, for example, you know, people's identities or something in certain cases, but on the whole, the main gist of what's happening should be made public. I don't see what the problem is there. Again, the lack of transparency is alarming. That is something that the FIA is very bad at. Again, where are the fines going? The GPDA have asked. They've not answered. It's not good, and this is from an organisation that apparently can't afford full-time F1 stewards. They don't have the money for it. Where's the money going then? They said this does not prevent the two presidents from involving the Senate or the Senate members or other members of the FIA or its staff discussing or implementing any recommendations from the ethics committee. However, critics say it does remove the obligation for them to do so, which previously existed. The statement added that it was necessary to limit the automatic sharing of information with multiple members because ethics committee reports often contain material of a confidential nature. Limiting it, I understand that, but don't get rid of the whole thing. Critics point out that the changes limit oversight only to the FIA President and the President of the Senate. On the audit committee, the FIA said the changes were to clarify that it is an advisory body to the Senate and that it retains its powers to assist and investigate if asked to do so by the President of the Senate. Critics point out the fact that the audit committee cannot act unless asked is a significant concern when it comes to transparency and good governance. So, big article there. I know that was quite a lengthy one. I'll be honest, guys. This is like high level politics. I do struggle with this kind of stuff to understand it, but I think I get the gist of the problem here. Like I was saying through it, it does seem like, you know, these changes are basically limiting accountability. They seem like they're limiting who the president has to answer to, what, you know, the kind of process around what would happen if there is more misconduct investigations, which there's been several of for Ben Sulayem. I mean, the worst one being around the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix in 2023 and also the Las Vegas Grand Prix last year. You know, he was investigated for that and cleared on it. And, you know, basically, I think the reason why they cleared him is the fact that they didn't have any evidence, really. But that whole process, to me, I wasn't a massive fan of anyway. It did seem a bit like they're just keeping this in-house. And, you know, this is a very public figure. This is a very important figure in the world of motorsport at the end of the day. So I'm not a fan of it. With everything that's gone on with Ben Sulayem, it does seem as though this is yet another controversy, yet another step, unfortunately, towards just, you know, being president for life. Apparently he's going to run in 26 or whenever it is, and he's going to run unopposed, which for someone that is this deeply unpopular, I think that just tells you all you need to know about the FIA right now. It's got itself backed into a corner and looking pretty shambolic, to say the least. But those are just my thoughts, guys. Let me know yours in the comments below. Do you think these changes are good or bad? And if you think they're bad, tell me why. Hell, if you think they're good, tell me why as well. I want to hear your opinions on this. And of course, keep it subscribed to the F1Chronicle.com to see much more content on the world of Formula 1 just like this.